Well, content is the base of most online business lead generation. In fact, for mine, I think this YouTube channel is bringing more than 70% of the students to the Notion Academy. But posting consistently is quite hard because we always have to be coming up with new ideas. In fact, this is a secret struggle that I'm always having, that I always think that in 2 weeks from now, I will not have anything else new to say. And if your business rely on the leads that you get from the content that you produce, this may mean that your income in future weeks or months is gonna be lower, which puts even more pressure on generating new content. But what if we had a framework that we can always use in those moments of desperation when we don't know what to talk about? Some framework that can help us come up with new content ideas. And what if that framework will mean that we will never ever run out of content ideas again? So this is what this video is going to be about. This framework works for all types of content ideas. It will take a little bit of time to set up for your own needs and for your own topics, but once it's set up, it is super easy to use. You will even laugh about how easy it is. And by the way, hats off to Jack Butcher, who is the guy who I learned this framework from. He's an amazing content creator, and I will link his Twitter in the description of this video because he's truly amazing. Okay, so why do this framework work? Because it will force us to create constraints when we are coming up with ideas. But you may think that creating constraints may limit your creativity. This is a little bit far from the truth, because by creating these constraints, we're gonna avoid what is called the paradox of choice. This is a term coined by Barry Schwartz in the book The Paradox of Choice. And this is the definition that the author gives for this paradox of choice. The paradox of choice is an observation that having many options to choose from, rather than making people happy and ensuring that they get what they want, can cause them stress and problematize decision making. Okay, so we can understand it a little bit better. Let's imagine that we enter in a bakery and there is dozens and hundreds of different baked products that they all look fantastic. If you are to choose just one of them, how would you feel? I think you will feel quite overwhelmed because there is too many choices, and even the FOMO can start kicking in because if you choose one, you may be saying no to another one, scarcity mindset, so everything is gonna be much more complex. But what if we enter in that same bakery, but instead of having dozens and hundreds of products, they just have 3? It will be so much easier to choose, and I'm sure that you will not feel that overwhelmed. So this is what is going to be the aim of this framework: to reduce the number of possibilities of new content ideas that we have at our disposal, so we can get more focused and actually come up with ideas, instead of just randomly thinking with all the different options that content can provide, because probably we will not get many good ideas this way. Okay, so how does this framework work? We're gonna have 4 columns with different options, and there's gonna be hundreds of different combinations of these 4 columns, and each combination will help us come up with new content ideas. Okay, let's come here to Notion where I have this already built, and let's go one by one. The first one is the content pillar. So this is going to be the type of content that we are going to be creating. I think for most of the creators, this is going to remain invariable. So in my case, the first one is actionable, which is for ready to implement advice; aspirational, which is all around success stories and growth; analytical, which is for extracting insight from something; and anthropological, that it talks about how people behave and why we do what we do as humans. So this is going to help us set kind of the vibe of the content that we are going to be creating. Then the second column is going to be the topic or the theme. Of course, this will vary across all creators. These are mine. This is the different topics that I want to be covering. Of course, this YouTube channel is just about Notion mainly, but in my other social networks, in my newsletter or Twitter, I cover all of these topics. So in this case, social media, content, Notion, creators, email marketing, digital products, online courses, like all of this. So for creating yours, do a little bit of introspection to see which topics you dominate the most, which topics you want to talk to, and write them all over here. The next one is going to be experiences, because truly said, almost all my content comes from my personal experiences. But again, personal experiences is quite broad. So this column is going to help us narrow that down so we can focus on certain kinds of experiences. Because again, I repeat, the purpose of this is to have the least options possible to generate the greatest number of ideas. So in my case, I find things such as my journey, relationships, failure, my lessons, aspirations, projects, people, discomfort, mental shifts, pain, reflection, visuals, work life, freelancing, making money. Probably this will also appeal to you, but again, feel free that if any doesn't relate to your current situation or the type of experiences that you've had, feel free to edit them, to remove them, and to add whatever you need. And finally, the structure of the content. So as you see, these three first columns are shaping mainly the topic of the content, what is the content going to be about, and this fourth one is like the makeup, like the way that we are going to choose to deliver this content. Here probably you will also be able to use all of these. The structure can be failures, steps, tips, how is it done, learnings, failures. There is so many different structures here, X versus Y. Okay, so now that we have this ready in our Notion, that by the way, you can find this template in the description of this video, how are we going to use it? Well, I'm gonna close this master view, and this is the view that we are gonna be using for coming up with content ideas. So the way that this works is written here. We are gonna choose one content pillar, then one of these two or the two, plus one structure, and then let's see what comes up with this. Okay, so let me give you one example. Analytical, we can choose randomly, system building, reflection, and X versus Y. Okay, so something analytical related to system building, that is reflection, and that I compare X with Y, something versus a different something. So it comes to mind having a system with or without input pages, which are pages that we use to input information into our system. Having systems with and without input pages. Pros and cons. For example, this can be one piece of content, okay? But as you can see here, this is not very actionable. I'm just writing things down over here. So what is cool about Notion, that probably if you have been following my channel, you already know, is that we can embed linked databases as the input points, as this new idea has told me, for my different databases. And in this case, I'm managing all my YouTube videos here in Notion, so I can create an entry point for video ideas in here. So instead of just writing this simple text, I can directly input those new ideas into my YouTube videos database, and then that new idea is gonna go through the whole flow that, if you're interested, you can see over here in this video how it works until that idea becomes one of the videos that you're gonna watch. So let's do that right now. As I already have that input point, I'm going to steal it from here. This is my content engine page, so I'm gonna duplicate and move it. So now if we go back, I have it over here. So this one I can drag here. I already have the idea, it's Notion related, and then I will select the focus, the type, and that is it. And I have the idea already into my system. So let's do a couple more examples. Let's say actionable, work-life balance, freelancing, and learnings. Okay, so this reminds me of the time when I was burning out because I was working too much and I was not really paying attention to my hobbies or even to my family and friends. So some actionable advice that I can give for all of this, because this is also learnings, is that I have learned that leaving some space for non-work things has to always be a must. And here I can expand on the story when I was feeling burning out and the learnings that I got from it. A new one can be also actionable, let's say content, lessons, and before versus now. Okay, so the lessons that I got from creating content is that running out of ideas is something quite common and a fear of a lot of people. And before I didn't have any way of coming up with ideas, but now I have this content generation super exercise. So this is actually the combination that brought me to create the video that you're watching right now. So I will just create here content generation super exercise, and this idea will be already into my system. So if you're interested to know what happens after the idea has come into my system, I have a full video explaining that, all these steps that you see over here, and you can watch it over here. So that is it for this video, guys, and as always, hasta la próxima.